Hey everyone and welcome to Cut, Transform, Glue. This week's video is packed with content and progress on the science self-driving truck, which already comes with a ton of great features. This build is going super fast, but there are still some things that I need to take care of, beginning with the active suspension system. There are many pieces, one for each wheel, so let's just go for it. To navigate rough terrain, this vehicle features an adaptive suspension system where each wheel independently moves and adapts to road conditions, or even the lack of roads, providing a smooth and safe drive for the mobile lab. But as it was straight from the printer, pieces were looking a little boring. Recently, I saved some good-looking keyboard keys, and their size was just perfect for what I needed. On the other side, I went with a simple plastic disc. I make these myself and I'll show you guys how later on the video, so stay tuned. And I of course included some air vents on each suspension arm, as all of that moving would generate a lot of heat. Now the pieces are still far from being finished, but I applied a quick coat of primer to each of them. There's no such thing as too many primer layers, especially when you're working with some 3D printed parts. Then I of course put everything together just to look at my model and decide where to go next. Quickly I decided what to tackle next, right on the front of the truck. There are a couple of mounting holes from the Wi-Fi router, which is a nice opportunity to add things to. Now this self-driving thing will be bumping on trees and whatnot, so I had to add some protection rails using a PVC rod and a matching socket. I installed the printed sockets on the mounting holes, and then I made a quick jig to be able to precisely shape the PVC rods. This one is quite thick, 5mm to be precise, so I had to use some heat to make the plastic malleable. Just gotta be careful because PVC is quite toxic when burnt. Some finishing touches on the disc center, and now the front of the truck is protected. From there I had the idea of adding a terrain analysis instrument on the front of the truck, because that will be helpful for settlements. Now, one of the best decisions I made in this project was to 3D model the Wi-Fi router, as that allowed me to quickly make some precisely matching pieces to go with it. As I showed you guys in the last episode, I made an adapter to hold the chemicals tank on the back of the truck. So I decided to reprint that piece to go on the front so I could hold the terrain analysis thing. I know this seems like unnecessary work, but keep in mind that my life will be much easier on the painting process by having all of the pieces nicely separated. From that I went shopping. This instrument needs to look fantastic, and I think I found some great pieces. And with the pieces selected, it's time to put them together. As I often do, I used my drill press to change some features from the shape. Then I grabbed an aluminum ring to go with it. This will look so good when I do the chipping of the paint. I found this cool thing to go with it. And then I of course dropped it, because that's what I mostly do here in my shop. I drop things and I go hunting for them. The pieces that weren't able to escape me were glued together, making this nice looking arm for the instrument. I made some fittings to be able to attach things together quickly. Yeah, 3D printed pieces again. And I wanted the terrain analysis radar to be on an angle and maybe even to be able to change its position. So I went with my favorite way to do that. And that is Wi-Fi antennas, precisely the adjusting mechanism they have. I couldn't be happier with this result. Now to the next challenge. I also wanted to add some protection rails on the back of the truck, but here's the problem. I kinda ran out of the 5mm PVC rods when doing a bunch of tests. Initially I wanted the rails to go over the chemicals tank, but what I had wasn't enough, so I went with a simple bracket-shaped rail for the top of the back. I mean, kinda dangerous, a self-driving truck with an exposed chemicals tank on the back, but hey, it looks cool at least. I really like this lower volume on the back, kinda protruding out. It looks cool to me. But now let's change our attention to another great part of the process. And that is, of course, the detailing. I love the detailing portion of any build. I begin by making myself a quick jig. I'll use this to mark the surface of the model to precisely decide where to add each little detail. You guys know me, I like to be as precise as I can. This is a super simple idea. I'm not really sure why I haven't thought of that before. I just know it will be standard from now on. Making all of those markings by eye is never enough, and using rollers can be tricky. So yeah, I plan on making multiple jigs to help me with that in the future. The detailing process is so relaxing and good for my mind that I can easily waste hours doing it. I'm also always looking for new ways to add details, new types of shapes, like those purple shiny bumps I added right there. I'm not a big fan of panel lines. To me those just don't look super futuristic, so I very much prefer adding tiny holes, bumps, plastic discs and stuff like that. But some pieces scream for a panel line, like the navigation system on the top of the truck. In those cases, I just listen for what they're calling. And with that, I thought I had a nice level of detail all across the truck. Now recently I got a comment right here on the channel asking for a terminal on the side of the truck, so settlers could come and interact with the computing capabilities of this science unit, and that made so much sense. So I of course went looking for some pieces to build that. So I found this old friend right here. Let me know in the comments if you remember this one. And this one could be like a folding keyboard for this terminal. To go with it, some keyboard keycaps, I love these pieces, and some laser cut acrylic shapes to make an arm that would extend from the side of the truck outside. As you saw, I chose a ton of cool shapes for this terminal and started to put that together. Now the trick with tiny pieces like that is to be super delicate. There's not enough surface area for the glue to act, so you gotta be extra careful. Pretty quickly I had a cool terminal with a couple of folding screens and keyboard. The next challenge would be the extending arm, which I made using some really old laser cut acrylic shapes. One end of the arm was of course glued on the back of the terminal with some baking soda, and I kept it loose like that to decide on the pose of it later. Then again, 3D printed parts. This will be sitting on the side of the truck, so I had to open a precise hole using my favorite Dremel bit. This will be listed on the description below. Can you see the tiny Lego piece right there? This is what I'll use to connect the extending arm of the terminal. Next thing I did was decide on the position of the terminal, and for that I grabbed the node thread. A couple of extra tanks on the top of the science truck, and this thing is nearly ready to be painted. Just need to add an extra coat of primer to it. I always like to include in my models what I call surface details, tiny little pieces to add some bumps on areas that might be empty. Now to make those myself, I have this jig, which is just a thick acrylic sheet and a strong metal piece right under it. There are matching holes on both layers and of course a tiny gap where I could fit the plastic strip. A metal rod that precisely matches those holes comes from the top and punches the disc down, and for that job a simple hammer would be enough. But right here in my shop I have a drill press and it makes the punching much faster. Anyways, you got the idea. I just thought it would be interesting to share how I made it and maybe inspire you to do the same. That is, if you're as nerdy as I am. But let's go back to the project and the final coat of primer. This project is nearly finished, like 99% ready for the paint job, for which I'm accepting ideas. Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much if you watched this far, like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Bye!